Hello and welcome to the Talk Villa podcast. I'm your host Samit Paul and we are looking back at Villa's 2-2 draw with Burnley in the Premier League on Sunday afternoon. The goals from Ross Barkley and Ollie Watkins turned things around for us at Turf Moor, but poor defensive play for both of the goals from the hosts ensured that we dropped 2 points in a game that we really should have won. It means that the race for a top 5 finish rumbles on for yet another week as Villa struggle to get over the line. And while it's very much still in our own hands, we have a big clash with Liverpool up next now that could determine the outcome of this particular race. As with every game, I'll be discussing my 5 key talking points as we have a deeper dive into our draw with Burnley. But first, let's have a listen to the boss, Unai Emery, and his thoughts on the game as he spoke to Villa TV.
Thankful the players, how they are doing the effort, a huge effort to compete, achieving the final in Europa League on Thursday, and to competing today to get points. We deserve more. I think we deserve to win, but we conceded 3 real and clear chances to score, and they scored 2 goals. And conceding clear chances like we did is difficult, but of course we created enough chances to win. We scored 1 goal in offside, so tight. We created offensively out of corners, and I think we played to win, and the players showed as well their wishes to achieve those 3 points. And I'm so happy because to be in the final in Europa League is something amazing, and to share with the Premier League, so difficult Premier League, to be in the top 5 and like we are now with Liverpool 59 points and competing against Barkley, against Bournemouth, against Brighton. They are doing a fantastic season as well. It's really fantastic to be in the top 5, and as well we can watch, we can see another teams examples. It's not easy to compete in Europe and perform in Europe and to performing in the Premier League in both. They are doing Arsenal as well. In Champions League is doing as well Crystal Palace in Conference League, and we are doing in the Europa League, and at the same time we are competing again to be in Champions League next year, and hopefully through the league or hopefully through the Europa League, but enjoy the moment with our supporters. I am so motivated and so excited for the match on Friday against Liverpool. We are going to test against them as well in Villa Park, which team is in this moment better than another in the table. We are with the same points. Of course it's Liverpool, and it's going to be very difficult, and it's a huge challenge. And then prepare the final against Freiburg in 10 days. We are every supporters of Aston Villa, the followers of Aston Villa, we should be so proud of everything we are doing, and we should be so excited and motivated to try to face the last days, the last week, the last matches in the season.
That was Unai Emery speaking to Villa TV after our 2-2 draw with Burnley. So on to my 5 key talking points then, and let's start with Ollie Watkins and his excellent run of form in recent weeks. Now, the pressure was building on Watkins not so long ago. He was suffering through a really ill-timed goal drought, and his place even in the England squad this summer was being questioned. But he's responded brilliantly since, with 4 goals and an assist in his last 6 league outings. And he's also added 5 goals and 2 assists in his last 6 appearances in Europe. Now, Villa needed him to step up and alleviate that pressure by being more decisive in front of goal. We were struggling for goals, we were struggling for creative quality, and he stepped up and delivered at a critical moment in the season. And while he's been magnificent to this point, hopefully he's got a few more left in him for the remaining games, particularly against Liverpool and Freiburg in our next 2 outings, as we'll definitely need him for those. On to the second point, and that is defensive lapses cause our downfall again. Now, Emi Martinez has produced many big moments again this season. There's no doubt that he's a decisive presence between the sticks for us, and he's a really important character to have in this squad. While we hope he will step up again if he's needed in the next 2 games to help us deliver what we're all craving, an area of his game for me has emerged as a real weakness this season, and it doesn't seem as though he's managed to figure out a fix for it yet based on what we saw on Sunday. Once again, he parried an effort into a dangerous area into his own box, and subsequently on this occasion he got punished for it on the rebound as Burnley took the lead. For the second goal, we lost possession in a really dangerous area in our own half, and we were punished once again. And so these mistakes just cannot happen. They have to be cut out before we face Liverpool and Freiburg now. We seem to have done a pretty good job of doing that in recent weeks, and when we're on it, fully focused, fully locked in, as we saw against Forest, those defensive lapses just don't happen. But this game, for some reason, it crept back into our performance and we got punished on both occasions. And in big games like Liverpool and particularly against Freiburg, you just can't afford to have that, as if we get punished, we're risking really negative results. That's not what we want in those two hugely important games. The third point is that both Mings and Maatsen struggled in this game. Now, both Mings and Maatsen were given an opportunity to come in and impress in this game, but for differing reasons, I didn't feel as though either of them will feel at ease with their respective performances. Mings has been an integral part of the process that has brought us to the point that we're at right now, and while I do think a lack of consistent playing time feels like a key factor here, because that lack of consistency in his minutes and his ability to find a rhythm, get up to the speed of the game and just be settled in a back line, comfortable with the teammates around him, I do feel as though that plays into it quite a lot. But I think he's struggled to come in and play at the level required in his most recent performances. The drop-off from Pau Torres feels significant to me now, particularly in how we build our play out from the back. I just don't think Mings is effective enough in that regard. And so a decision could arguably be needed this summer in terms of what's best for both parties and whether or not it suits us both. As for Maatsen, it's a similar story in some ways. I thought he got left out at a point where he had a stretch where he was actually playing quite well. You could see improvement in his game. There was a development to his defensive work, and obviously you've got that sort of injection of pace and energy going forward. But that seemingly knocked him out of his stride when he got dropped for a few games to Luca Dean, and I do feel as though that improvement has now stagnated. Doubts remain over his defensive play, as I thought he looked vulnerable throughout in this game, on that side of the pitch. And if he cannot correct that, which he's struggling to do so again at the moment, then Luca Dean is going to continue to be favoured. Now, I've been a massive advocate of Maatsen being the first choice left back for us this season, but if he can't get that defensive side of his game sorted out and be a reliable presence on that side of the pitch, and again, like I say, I don't think that double change of Maatsen and Mings helps. If it was Pau next to him, I think it's a different story. I think he looks more settled with Pau alongside him. They work better as a pair on that side of the pitch, the defence. So I think that is a huge part of it as well. But if he cannot get the defensive part of his game spot on and also add more quality to his end product going forward, because he gets forward into good positions, but he's just not finding that killer delivery at the end of it. And so if he fails in those two phases, then Luca Dean, as I say, will continue to be favoured. And whether or not you agree, you might prefer Dean anyway. But for me, long term, Maatsen was always the one that should have emerged and been the first choice defender for us in that position. But in more recent times, there's certainly question marks there over whether or not that's going to be the case. On to the fourth point then, and that's having a conversation about Morgan Rogers. Now, with 12 goals and 10 assists so far this season, Rogers has undoubtedly played a really important role this year. That's made him a key part of our squad and potentially our future. But he's registered just 1 goal and 1 assist in his last 11 league outings now. And for me, that's just not enough. From a player of his quality and the importance that he has within the team, it's just not enough. He has to do more. He has been overplayed, and I do feel as though he should have been rested a lot more. So fatigue absolutely shouldn't be dismissed in this conversation. But I just think he's been largely ineffective for some time now. And in complete contrast, Watkins has grabbed the moment in this final stretch with both hands, and he's delivered consistently for us. Again, a bit of a strange comparison. I get it that they're two different positions, two different types of players and what they do on the pitch, but I just feel as though Rogers needs to sort of just grab these games by the scruff of the neck and just take over. He's got the ability to do it, but we're just not seeing it, and we haven't seen it for quite some time for me, in my opinion. And like I say, it feels harsh to single him out for criticism and be too negative, because we've got 2 huge games coming up ahead of us now. But this is more born out of a desperation, really, to see him rediscover that top form again and deliver at the most critical point in our campaign. Because like I say, we've seen it time and time again from him. He is a match winner. He's capable of being that player for us. I think it was Jamie Carragher who said during that crazy stretch of winning games that we had, where people started talking up our chances of being Premier League title contenders, was that if Rodgers can sustain the form that he was on at that point, then he is the man that can drive us to those heights. He's got the ability to do that. But like I say, I just feel as though he's been falling way, way short of it for a long time now. And yes, you can argue that, teams have adapted. They've switched up their tactical approach and set up to cut out passing lanes to him, to double up on him, to put him under immediate pressure as soon as he gets the ball. But then that's a lack of adaptation on our side, whether that's the coaching, whether that's Rodgers himself, whether that's a combination of both of them. We have had this conversation or this discussion from the start of the season where he was really, really badly struggling, and he even talked about the atmosphere at Villa Park and the fans slightly getting on his back a little bit against Bologna in that Europa League game. And many months have passed since then, and we're back in the same situation where he is struggling to influence games in a meaningful way, in a consistent way. And I completely praise him for having the courage to try things that other players don't even want to try or can even have the ability to try. He is that type of player that can see a pass, that can play a flick around the corner to set us going on a fast break. But it's the loose possession, the easy surrendering of possession on such a frequent basis now. That's the more frustrating and disappointing aspect of his performances recently. And he needs to cut that out, sharpen things up. And if he can emerge as that player for us again in top form for the next 2 games, then that's going to make such a massive difference in our ability to end this season successfully. And fingers crossed he can do it for himself, for the team, and it all ends well. But we'll have to see if Rodgers can indeed deliver when we need him to. On to the 5th and final point, and that is now 5 days, which will determine everything. Now, it all comes down to a 5-day stretch that will determine the success of this season. It's Liverpool at home on Friday night, as we hope to seal a top 5 finish and do it ourselves and not have to rely on other results going our way to do that, before we travel to Turkey to face Freiburg in the Europa League Final on May 20th. Perhaps that will now work in our favour. You never know. Rather than rotating and the possible risk of sleepwalking through another domestic encounter, players having one eye off the ball, thinking about the Europa League Final rather than what's in front of us, this gives Villa an opportunity now to sharpen the tools against Liverpool and then fly out to Istanbul in a more focused and buoyant mood if we can get the desired result. For all the highs and lows of this season, Unai Emery is right, as is usually the case. We are in a fantastic position to be fighting for Champions League qualification via the league. We're still in the top 5, 36 games into the season, and that is some going, especially when you look at the likes of Newcastle, who have really struggled to maintain that and continue to be in contention at the top end of the Premier League. You have got other teams emerging, the likes of Bournemouth and Brighton, putting pressure on us now. But Villa have managed to stick around, and that's something that we should actually celebrate and give them a pat on the back for. But we need to get over the line. We're crawling over towards it at the moment. It's just about getting that final result to just seal it. So as Unai Emery says, we're in a fantastic position to be fighting for Champions League qualification via the league position. And of course, we are still in the hunt for silverware in the form of a European trophy. So let's hope we're celebrating both those achievements come May 21st. So what were your talking points from our draw with Burnley? Do you agree with my points on Rodgers in particular and also on Mings and Maatsen? What do you think? Let me know your thoughts. If you're listening on YouTube, leave your comments below. For those listening to the pod via Apple Podcasts, Spotify or other means, please head over to talkvilla.substack.com and get involved in the conversation over there. So that's a wrap on this episode of the Talk Villa podcast. As always, I want to say a big thank you for those of you who have taken the time to have a listen. Please do subscribe to the pod or channel depending on where you're listening. You can get it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or YouTube or wherever else you get your podcasts. Please give the episode a like or leave a positive review on Apple Podcasts if you've enjoyed it. All your interactions will help to grow the channel. So as I say, I always appreciate your interactions and your engagement. It really is appreciated. Sign up to the Talk Villa Plus newsletter on Substack for ad-free Villa news, opinions and analysis, all of which is delivered directly to you. And there is also an option of a paid subscription for bonus content. All the details will be in the description of this podcast, but for more, please go to talkvilla.substack.com and subscribe. So after the delight of midweek, Villa were unable to see off Burnley this weekend, and so we will now look to wrap things up against Liverpool on Friday night. As I said, it's a massive 5 days in our season, with Freiburg on May 20th in Istanbul in the Europa League Final to follow that, and hopefully we're able to finish with a flourish this season. I'll be back on Saturday morning with my post-Liverpool thoughts as we hopefully can celebrate a win together, and then I will have further content next week leading up to the Europa League Final. But until then, villains, up the Villa.